ladies and gentlemen, today we will be tier listing every single one of the invadable areas in the game. I suppose I should make an intro off the stream instead of doing it right now, but I didn't do that because there's a lot of stuff that I have to say. For example, these are big areas, so we won't be going through them like area for area. It's all just one massive blob. We will just have to detract the good from the bad. I'm in the intro. You're not in the intro. This will all be cut, all right? Nothing that I said here will be in the goddamn video. Do you understand? No. Anyways, let's get to it. The first thing that we have here is Carrion Manor. I like Carrion Manor. I think Carrion Manor is a fun area, so I'm gonna put it at B. It has a lot of elevation. It has a lot of interesting different spots where you can do stuff. You can go down the cliff, you can travel across the bridges. It has a nice flat area, but even so, in that nice flat area, there is a bunch of statues and there's a bunch of pillars that you can hide behind. So I think that's a B. I think Carrion Manor is pretty good. It is a little annoying to try to find them whenever you spawn, but in most cases, it's pretty good. I think Rastone disagrees, but, you know, Rastone doesn't have taste at all, so who cares about what he thinks. Next up, Ballarat Tower. I love Ballarat Tower. From the beginning area, you have the opening with all of the spiders. That's a lot of fun. Then you have the city itself, and it's not all that often where you feel like you get to do urban warfare in the Souls games. It's either a castle or a dungeon or something like that. So you have the main street that leads into a few buildings. That's really interesting. You have the Grand Dam area where you can fight. That's really interesting. And then it leads you up and above, where you are fighting on the roofs. You're fighting in the staircase. And it also has this sneaky little area that takes you to the Lake of Poison, which is kind of like the Lake of Rot, just fun. You know, it's not annoying as hell. It actually adds to the invasion. So I want to place Ballarat at A. The Poison Swamp adds to the experience. Castle Ensis. Castle Ensis is a place I do enjoy. It has some really cool areas, like the wall up to the elevator. It does unfortunately also come with a few annoying areas. If you're just fighting in up the main path, then that's not all that much fun. But if you are on the cliff side of things, and if you're a little further up ahead, and of course you have the buildings as well. The sad part about Castle Ensis though is that you tend to fight people either very early or very late. Fighting people in the middle, where it's actually a lot of fun, that's getting a little problematic. Yeah, I think it's still a B though. I still think Castle Ensis has some really good things to it. It's just that it's hard to get there at times. Castle Morn. Yeah, I do think Castle Morn has some elevation to it. That's fun. Castle Morn has some interesting bridge-like areas, and going down on the backside of Castle Morn is quite fun. I really enjoy the elevator area as well. But as you guys said, there are some really sucky spawns. And so if you spawn in an area where you can't reach the host, then it gets frustrating. At the very bottom of Castle Morn is also fine, but a lot of people tend to just rush the boss. I do enjoy fighting on the bridge, but the bridge isn't scary, because if you fall down, I don't think you even take any fall damage. So that's why Castle Morn, I think it's a C. I think it's a classic C. You think Castle Ensis equals Fog Wall? Yeah, kinda. A little bit. Then we have the Catacombs. Now, catacombs vary a lot from each other. They do. But we're just going to take every single one of them and put them in one category. And if I have to do that, I'm going to say it's a D. There are some fine areas to invade in certain catacombs, but mostly it's just like, there's nothing special, and at worst, it's annoying. Like that one catacomb where you have to go through that secret passage in order for you to continue forward. I hate that place so much. I really do. But the others are fine, so we will take it. I will take that. Next up are the caves. I think the caves are better than the catacombs. I really do. The caves has some really interesting architecture in them. There is the cave that is in Limgrave. Not just the one where you pick stuff up, not just the mine, but the cave that has the... I think there's a golem boss at the end. I really like that. The whole watery area, the waterfalls, that's cool. And then there is the cave that has 2 bosses in it. I love that cliffy area where you can throw stuff and hide as bushes. I think that's so much fun. So I will absolutely put the caves on at the sea. Mines and caves are all grouped together. I will group mines and caves together, yes. For a sea. I do like that. Castle Sol. Castle Sol has a lot of fog walls. Castle Sol also has a lot of fights that happens at the very opening of it. So I don't want to give it a B, but I do think it's a C. In fact, I think it's a strong C. I think I would put Castle Sol before Castle Morn, because you do have some different paths where you can find interesting areas to fight. There are ambushes to be had. There are a few nice flat areas, and then you can jump down to a lower area to escape the host. And also, let's not forget, I got my best ever triple kill in Castle Sol, so I think it's absolutely going in C tier. Crumbling Faroum Azula. I both love and kinda dislike Crumbling, because there are a lot of really interesting places to invade, especially when you go through the middle of the area. A well-placed throwing pot can send people careening off the edge. But I hate fighting people while they are fighting dragons. And a lot of times when I invade in this area, I have to fight them while fighting a dragon. Plus they have the dragon cheese area where the dragon doesn't hurt them, but it hurts you because it loads for you, even though they have killed it. I do not like that at all. So I would be placing it higher up, but it's gotta be a B. I'm not gonna place it as C, because as I said, when it's good, it's really good. But when it's bad, it is one of the more frustrating experiences that I've had. Next up, you can't see it on the image, but it's the area right after the Lake of Rot. I thought that deserved to get its own little place, and I'm gonna put it in A tier. I love that you can fight people on the small ledge. You have to first go from the grace to the small ledge, you can jump over, and then you have to go down. You have to go down the pillar and down and down and down. And then there is it's the river of rot that actually goes through the entire area. It's not so annoying that you have to contend with it all the time, but it is an element and it adds to it. So I really like it there. I really do. I'm gonna put that as an A. That might be a bit of a controversial choice, but I just absolutely enjoy it, especially considering that a lot of the fights I do get is in that very first area because people are summoning people. Yeah, I love it. I love it. Alphael, Brace of the Haligtree. So after watching this back, I realized that taking the Haligtree town, the canopy, and the rest of the Haligtree in one go is a little unfair. So I'm gonna split them up. First, the town and the canopy, and I love these places. The canopy is super risky. One well-placed pot will send people careening off the branches, and that's what makes it so fun. It's risky, but worth it. If you do get into a close-range battle, well, you better watch your step. And there's always the potential of ending up in a jar cannon battle, which in other places is a bit boring, but here, since every shot is a potential kill, that is amazing. As far as the town is concerned, I love that place too. There's a lot of parkour action going on. There are bridges, there are places where you can do ambushes, there are places where you can hide with a white branch. No, that's Dark Souls. With a mimic veil and go boo and scare your opponents off a bridge. There is one small issue though, and that is once people open the shortcut, a lot of the fighting tend to happen in front of the boss, which isn't the most exciting of the areas, but I still give this place a solid A. Next up is the Haligtree itself, and what I really appreciate about this place is that it has a lot to offer. For example, the main path is a bunch of different levels, so you're fighting the host at the top, the host gets reinforcements, you have to run away, you jump over the fence there and land on the roof of the building that you see below. Now, your host can follow you, however, there are enough enemies down there to act as a distraction while you leg it away. Then, maybe you take the stairs back up again and come crashing down from above. Perfect ambush. You can also take a small side passage and get into that tower. You can go up the ladder and you can have a nice ladder fight. There is also a small pathway around that tower where you find an elevator, which is a terribly placed elevator, but whatever. Or you can jump down to another level and a level below there again, which is really nice. You can very easily access the host in this area, and there's a lot of side passages, a lot of interesting architecture, and we've gotten to the point where the camera scrolls all the way to the end, and I think the buildings are it stops loading the buildings. But this area is fantastic. The next area I want to talk about would be the area right above Melania's boss room, the small swamp area. That is also a really fun area to invade. I know some people might not like it all that much because it is rot, but it's not like it's the lake of rot. You only have to go through one small area with rot. It makes its presence known as a gameplay element, and when it's done, you're done with it. You don't have to worry about it, and you can stand on the other side and shoot at people trying to get over, and then there are a small amount of routes that you have to parkour over in order to get to the next grace. I really appreciate that as well. Now, I'm not a big fan of attacking people while they're fighting the ulcerated tree spirit, because that's just too chaotic to be fun. But even so, this is also an area that gets a strong A. Always equip jar cannon with lightning rounds to flush them out of certain areas. Yeah, absolutely. Then we have Enter Elm. Now, we have somebody saying in my YouTube chat that this is an S rank all day for invasions. And I tend to agree. I love this area more than I dislike it. Which is a weird sentence. Let me tell you what I mean by that. It has so many good spots. For example, the secret path that leads you to the Twin Blade. Fighting people there is incredible. Running around on the rooftops fighting is incredible because the terrain is quite difficult to... It's quite jarring at times. It's quite bumpy, which does create for a very interesting experience. But it also has more flat surfaces that allows you to have a better or a more controlled fight. There's also a lot of staircases, there's a lot of inside areas, there's a lot of sneaky places to hide, to ambush people. I really like it. And while it's maybe not great, I still think it's a little fun to invade in front of Radahn. People in front of Radahn do tend to fight you more than people in front of Melania. And in front of Radahn, you can go back and you can fight alongside the big elevator, which I have used multiple times to my own benefit when it comes to separating different people and doing a little bit of divide and conquer. I love that place. I do, and so it deserves to get the first S rank. Enter Elm lets you be the most ruthless red if you lure them towards PvE, but it also lets you be friendly red if you lead them to all the secrets. That's true, Sir John Sekiro. So yeah. Fort of Reprimand. I suppose I'll give the Fort of Reprimand a B score. I enjoy invading there. I also really enjoy the unique view of the gallows. You can fight alongside the boss, which is nice. There is a basement area that is fun, and then there's the top area with a bunch of elevation. There's not too much to say there. I think it is good enough to give it a B score. Then we have Leyndell, Royal Capital. I love this place. I'm gonna give this an S rank. I feel like Batman, jumping across the rooftops in order to find my prey. Granted, I am an evil Batman, and I murder my victims, but still, I love that aspect of it. I also love the first wall that leads you to the elevator down into the city proper. You can push people off in that area. It's also surprisingly good for ambushes if you use the Mimic Veil, which I think is great. You also have the sewers. I'm not talking about the sewer, the subterranean sunning grounds, but I'm talking the sewers of Leyndell. That's pretty fun. The whole dead dragon thing and having to jump up on top of his wings, that's a really unique area to do invasions, and it gives the fight a very specific dynamic. And I really appreciate being in the Round Table Hold. You're inside of that building. That's pretty cool. You can jump down from the balcony, run around, and you can have like a proper duel if you so chooses, or you can take advantage of the wall that you can run on, and just going up the routes to Goldfrey. So I absolutely think Leyndell Capital is S rank, I think. And there's a bunch of mobs all around. Yeah. The tree limbs before Golden Goldfrey. Absolutely. Next up is Midra's Manse. I'm gonna put that at a strong B. I think it's gonna be the best B. Midra's Manse is a little small, and people who go through Midra's Manse, they have a tendency to either fight you in that first hallway or in the library after they have gone through half of the area. But most of this area is fun to play in. I really like it. I say strong B. I'm gonna put it you know what? It's still a strong B, but it's gonna be after Castle Ensis and after Carrion Manor. That's where it is. I also get to fight a lot of people in front of the boss, because they don't fog wall as often for whatever reason. Maybe it's because the grace is right there. I think it's a B. I think this could have absolutely be A or maybe an S tier if they had developed the entirety of Midra's Manse into a proper level. But, you know, it's fine. It's fine. Rhea Lucaria. I think Rhea Lucaria is a very strong A. There is no area in Rhea Lucaria that I don't like. I think that the graveyard is a very cool and unique area. You have the opportunity to fight people between the graves while they're battling zombies. There is a rope bridge that is really scary. People can fall off. Then you have the different houses inside of Rhea Lucaria. I think those areas, while they are a little corridory, you do still have the opportunity to jump over certain ledges. There are a lot of staircases that you can take advantage of. You can drop kick people straight to hell. And we have the ball. Yeah, right after the Red Wolf of Radagon, you have a big open area, and that might be a little boring, but I appreciate the big flat surface area in case you want to do a big fight. You have the ball area, and to get to the ball area, you have to jump onto those small, I don't even know what they are called, but let's just say call them supports, those small supporting pillars. That's really fun. I have killed a lot of people there. And if you go back, there's also that secret passage at the edge there that leads you to, I believe it's a talisman, the Radagon talisman. Don't quote me on that, I might be wrong. But that's fun as well. You go up the ladder. And then it's inside of the main building with the boss herself. And where you fight Moongrum, there's an elevator there. Yeah, I want to say it's the strongest ones of the A tiers. I'm gonna pull... even before Ballarat. I love Ballarat. I just think that Rhea Lucaria has more diversity when it comes to fighting. Hey Drunk Souls, I'm making a tier list of all of the areas of where it's fun to invade. Next up is Redmane Castle. And I kind of feel like Redmane is a B tier. There is a fair amount of ladders, staircases, upper and lower levels. Geometry is interesting. There's a bunch of enemies there, but at the same time, I don't know. A lot of my fights basically end up being close to the boss room, and that's a pretty flat and boring area. I think the spawns here could have been a little better, but when the fights actually takes place on the rooftops, on the wall, it's fun. So I'm gonna call it a B tier. Redmane is too easy to camp on ladder and abuse. It is annoying, yeah, and it's the worst legacy dungeon. Yeah, I also think it's the worst legacy dungeon. I think Redmane Castle doesn't even... I don't think it should be considered a legacy dungeon. Haligtree Swamp better be an F tier. The Haligtree Swamp? Oh, you're talking inside of that area. Do you mean inside of the Haligtree? So the Haligtree, Drunk Souls, is it's part of everything, so it's an A tier. And quite frankly, I love the Haligtree swamp that is above Melania's boss room. Next up is Ruin-strewn Precipice, and I'm gonna give that an A. I'm absolutely giving that an A. It's gonna be in front of the Haligtree. It's gonna be in front of the area after the Lake of Rot. It's not better than the Balrad Tower though. Ruin-strewn Precipice was one of my favorite areas for the longest time, especially given the amount of people that I would meet there and their experience. They used to be, I want to say it's level 60, a lot of people around level 60, and because there is, I mean, it's a cliffside, it's literally called Ruin-strewn Precipice. So it's so easy to fall off, and you could use the Mimic Veil to such great extent here. There is that big flat area where you hear the grandma sing. It's the ladders that take you all the way up towards the boss. I don't like the area right before the boss because, you know, it's really easy to gank me there. I don't think I've seen as many fog walls in that area as I have seen ganks. I still think though, even with the few bad things, Ruin-strewn Precipice, I've had some great moments there, and I'm going to put it there. The only issue with Ruin-strewn is it's segmented by ladders that you may get cheesed on. I often get trapped there due to that. Ladder cheese is something that happens in a lot of places, but at the same time, sometimes I am the one taking advantage of the ladders. So I do think that it deserves its place as a strong A tier. Next up is the Shaded Castle. And the Shaded Castle, I think, is definitely an A. Yeah, definitely an A. Shaded Castle has the poison, of course. Of course it does. But it also has a very interesting path leading from the beginning towards the boss. The outside area has the poison, it has the walls. A lot of fighting does happen on the walls, and in order to escape the host, you can quickly jump off the wall and down into the poison. Now, if they follow you, they are either making a mistake or you're gonna get screwed. But I really like that. Then we come to the inner segment of the castle, and that's where I think it really gets good. You can hide behind all of the statues inside of the rooms. There is that ladder leading you to a top area where I have fought a bunch of people before. I have killed people there. I have gotten killed. I have gone in there for a fight, and then when the fight didn't turn out the way I wanted, I rolled back into the hole. And since they are trapped there, they either have to come to you or you have to come to them. Then there's the area right in front of the boss. And then there's the elevator. Yeah, I absolutely love that area. I do. It's a little small, perhaps, which is why it gets to be lower down on the A scale, but still. So many scary trap areas, dogs and mobs. Yeah. Always pack volcano pots for ladder shenanigans. Very smart. Shadow Keep. Shadow Keep is my favorite area in the game, bar none. Both the inside and outside of Shadow Keep is incredible. The storehouse, moving from the bottom of the tower to the upper areas, is so cool. You have the small labyrinth of bookshelves that leads you to some staircases that you can jump up. You can jump on top of these bookshelves, and then you can ambush your opponents. That is cool. It has some nice flat surfaces where you can just do your proper, dueling, spacing, basic fighting type of stuff. But there are also these small ledges that you can jump up on, up and off, and use that to your advantage. So if you are a player if you're being chased, this area is really nice. You also have the really cool statues or feet that you can walk up on, and at the very top of this area, there is the rafters. I love invading in the rafters. When the game or the DLC was first new, I spent so much of my time there, and especially near the scary elevator that brings you to the Commander Gaius boss fight. That elevator, I have murdered so many people by hiding as a flower and then popping up once all of them go into the elevator and just absolutely destroy them. So that is that is... yeah, that entire area, I think I will give that top of the shelf S tier. Drunk Soul says, my favorites are Leyndell, Stormveil, Volcano Manor, Shadowkeep, and Nokron. Anyway, that fog walls are likely, I likely despise. I don't actually mind fog walls as much as the other guy. I don't know why. I guess I'm just a little bit more patient, sexy. I think it's my big dick energy. Thank you, Drunk. Shit well, my friend. Shit well. Anyway, Stormveil Castle. Also an S tier. Stormveil Castle is one of the few areas... Stormveil Castle is one of the few areas that have multiple paths through it. And I think both of the paths are interesting. Of course, the main path, it does not have as much scary cliffs, but there are still certain areas, staircases and plateaus that you can reach where you can have an interesting fight. There are tons of enemies there if you are an invader and you need a little bit of help. And then there is the path that leads up to the lift side chamber. Not the big battle area before that, which is also cool, but that small path where there is a cliff you can jump up on. That is a very nice place for an invader to escape if you know how to jump properly. I have practiced that a lot actually, because invading in that area is really cool. The only problem with Stormveil Castle is that I don't generally get enough invasions there. I don't. I really don't. But when you do, almost anywhere where you invade has something interesting happening. So that's why it gets an S tier. This reminiscing makes me want to see an all-time favorite invasion video. Those flower attacks are hilarious. Yeah. Subterranean shunning grounds. So I'm of two minds here. It gets a C. Now, there are some really fun places to invade. On top of the pipes in the main room, that's a lot of fun. I, in fact, managed to kill somebody in that room while they were inside of the pipes by throwing bombs at them. That was incredible. And then there is the path that leads you down towards the Frenzied Flame prescription. I think that's a lot of fun as well. But finding people in that area can be a bit of a bitch. I do not like that. So either I end up having a good time or I end up having a miserable time. I will still put it before, I want to say, the caves? And castle. More maybe? No, actually, I'm happy with it right there. So that's why it gets a C. Volcano Manor! Volcano Manor is a pretty good one. I think Volcano Manor is an A tier. I'll put it before the Rune-strewn Precipice, but not before Ballarat. Volcano Manor has that small town in the beginning where you jump on the roofs. That's a lot of fun. You also have the main road, and then you get to the guest hall, which is just... it's a sneaky area. Absolutely. The staircases in that room allows for some athletic shenanigans, which is really fun. And then, after that, you are brought forth to, again, one of the scariest elevators in the entirety when it comes to the Lands Between. The elevators that leads you to the Temple of Aelay. I have gotten so many kills there. I have been killed so many times there. It's a risk using them, which makes it a lot of fun. I have stood on top with iron skin aromatic and just stop them from entering that area. It is fantastic. Daniel says remove Volcano down a slot just because of Rykard's room. I don't mind Rykard's room at all. There has been times where I've gotten ganked there. Absolutely. But I do think that Rykard's room being such a small space, it adds to the experience. It's something different. It's something new. Sometimes you are stuck in there with them. Sometimes they are stuck in there with you. If that had been the only part of it, then I would agree with you. It would suck. But since it comes as part of a package, I think it's an A. I do. Abyssal Woods. This area is far too big. It gets a D. It's only saved by the fact that you can take advantage of the madness people. Daniel didn't agree with that. Daniel says it's an ugh. I get it. And if it wasn't for the fact that you can take advantage of the madness enemies, then I would put it in ugh. But it does have that. There are a few interesting experiences that you can have. Even so, it's still a D tier. It's annoying. Next up is Altus Plateau. Altus Plateau is an area that I don't mind invading in, but a lot of the time, you're just running around on the ground. It's all pretty flat. There is not much interesting geometry. You do have the square boxes for some reason that people enjoy fighting on, but other than that, it's just boring. I think I would give it the lowest of the C's. There are a few trees and a few structures that helps you when it comes to fighting against mages, because fighting against mages in just a flat area is super annoying when it's impossible for you to avoid certain attacks. And there are a few of those in Altus Plateau, so that's why we're putting it there. The only good part of Altus is the staircase, the arrows, a double boss chaos. Yeah, I get it. I'm literally playing there right now. Yeah, I still think it's a C. I'm not like, oh, I'm fighting an Altus, but it's more like, okay, we're fighting an Altus again, whatever. Ancient Ruins of Ra. That's gonna get its own placement, because I hate that place so much. It is a huge area. It's difficult to find your enemies, and it does have some interesting places, but even those are so far and few between that if I could, I would lock this area and I would never invade there ever again. I do not like it at all. I hate the underground tunnels. I do. The only I want to say saving grace, but it's not enough, but it is a really pretty area. It is a really pretty area, and you do have some areas later on towards the boss that's interesting, but it's just not enough. I hate it. Caelid. Caelid is another C area, but I want to put it up almost to the top here. I think it's above Castle Morn, beneath Castle Sol. It runs the risk of being a little flat at times, but you have these huge growths. You have these huge roots that you can jump on, that you can hide behind. There's also a fair amount of ruins in the areas that are interesting to fight around. And the enemies there are also pretty nice. It is. There is, of course, the Lake of Rot area in the middle, which, when I said it out loud, I thought, well, that's going to be a little annoying. That's a negative. But you know what? No, I think that area is actually kind of cool, because there's enough islands there to make it less annoying. And I don't have to wade through all of the shit to find my opponents like you have to do in the Lake of Rot. So, yeah, I think I'm pretty confidently putting Caelid in C tier. Caelid has a bunch of enemies around, dogs, birds, and rot swamps. It's big, but it's pretty filled. Yeah, I agree. And let's not forget, they have Celia. The town of Celia is actually super cool in my opinion. So, in reality, we probably should have broken Caelid up into a few different pieces. Celia could actually get its own little area. Man, with Celia, I'm actually going to put it up front, in front of Castle Sol. I will put it up front. I think it's the best of the C tier areas. Yeah. Daniel would say it's even a B. Love Caelid personally. Yeah, you also have the different siege towers. You know what? Screw it. The more we talk about this, I'm gonna put it even in front of Redmane Castle. I would. Would you rather invade in Caelid General or in Redmane? I would invade in Caelid. I'd even put it in front of Fort of Reprimand. Yeah. It's not better than Crumbling Farum Azula, but it is better than the others. It's a little unfair maybe because we're stacking so much stuff in one, but I'm gonna put it at B. You guys convince me. Cerulean Coast. I mean, it's pretty good. It's pretty beautiful, but it kind of suffers from the same issues as the Altus Plateau. And that is, it's flat and there's not a lot of stuff there. You know? Cerulean Coast actually has one negative thing to it that Altus Plateau doesn't. And that's a dragon. I hate it. I hate fighting people who are fighting dragons. That being said, Cerulean Coast does have that really interesting little island that you can reach through the caves. So maybe I'm more of a Cerulean Coast dude than I am the Altus Plateau. But I suppose this is down to taste. I'm gonna put it above Altus Plateau. I will. And Yoda co-fight. Yeah, that's true. You can also do the Yoda co-fight. Gravesite Plains. This is another big one. This is another one that really encompasses a lot of stuff. And because of that, I'm gonna put it all the way at the top of C tier. It does have that large, flat, grassy area, but you also have a few interesting places, such as the cathedral where you probably get your first Scadutree fragments. You have the ruins around, which are quite large and pretty cool to traverse. It does have some furnace golems though, which sometimes are fun to fight enemies around, sometimes not. They're not as annoying as dragons. And there's the naked man just walking in the forest. That being said, it still struggles with being very empty at times. So that's why it's only C. And Prospect Town as well, yeah. Hey Marachow, I'm late to this. Are we ranking invasion locations? Yes. Have we hit Raya Lucaria Crystal Tunnel? Well, we have taken all of the tunnels and all of the caves, and we put them in C tier. We haven't ranked them separately, because that's far, far too much. Jagged Peak. So Jagged Peak is... So most of Jagged Peak is not all that great, but it's not all that bad either. You know, the area right in front of Bale is absolutely ugh. But everything before that is fine. But there are dragons that you have to fight. So you know what, I'll take Jagged Peak. And this might be down to personal preference. No, I'll put it in ugh. I will put it in ugh. Whenever I invade and I get to that specific place, ugh. Jagged Peak is interesting, right? Because the place right in front of Bale is one of the places where I don't like the terrain being so bumpy and uneven. You can just get stuck at times, and you don't know what you're stuck on. It's difficult to traverse, not because, you know, you have to jump on small platforms, but because it's hard to identify what is walkable and what will stop you. So we'll put Jagged Peak at ugh. Bonnie Village. We'll take that and we'll give it its own little own little spot. I don't know, I think it's a solid C. I'll put it in front of the caves, because you can jump on top of the buildings. There is bridges nearby. There are also a fair amount of flat spaces that you can just have it out in if you want to. But the geometry is interesting, and also there are naked men walking around. That helps you. And who doesn't love naked men? Limgrave, the first area. Limgrave tends to have a lot of fights that starts and ends at the first steps. People love to gank there. People love to have fight clubs there, which I understand. Because it's the first area, and there's a nice flat surface area there that you can do stuff in. There's also the large-ass lake, which is not all that fun to fight in, because it's just a big flat area. But it does have a few interesting locations to it. Because this area is so big, it will encompass both things we dislike and that we do like. There are bridges, there are cliffs, there are interesting paths to climb down. I'm gonna put it in front of Castle Morn. Because when it's bad, it's kind of like, yeah, sure, okay, whatever. But when it's good, it's pretty good. So I will give it a solid C. Limgrave is remarkably unremarkable. It has some decent terrain though. Limgrave is pretty fun at low levels, but annoying as fuck on higher levels. I don't have the same experience as you do, Daniel, on higher levels, but you know what, I think C is fine. Next up is Liurnia of the Lakes. Now, Liurnia of the Lakes does have a big, flat, watery area. It does. But I don't fight a lot of people in those zones. I fight a lot of people at the very beginning of the area. I fight a lot of people in the ruined town right before you go and enter the gate that takes you to Raya Lucaria. It has a fair amount of stuff on the sides that I find to be interesting. And it has the forest. It has the Madness Town. And it does have on its right side there's like a big old forest with a ton of statues. So that, I think, deserves its place as a... I think I will put it behind Limgrave. It's not quite as good as Limgrave at times, but it's better. 4 Belfries area along that side. Yeah, that's a good side as well. No, Daniel, I'm not putting it in Ugh. That does not deserve an Ugh. It does not. Mountaintop of the Giants. This is another one that I probably should have been split into a couple of different ones. Should have split the area right before the fire giant and the area below. I love the chains. I love the fortresses in this area. There is a lot of bridges, and especially funny, you can fight people on the invisible bridge. But it's also the home of Gank Lake, which is the most flat out of all flat areas in the game. And it also has a dragon, although this dragon I don't dislike quite as much as the other ones. You also get a lot of fog walls though, right before the fire giant. Even though it's super fun throwing somebody at people walking over the chains. So I'm gonna put it before Castle Morn. There's some fun places and there's some annoying places. And it all evens out in the end. I think the difference between the Mountaintops of the Giants is that Mountaintop of the Giants and Liurnia and Limgrave is that while these are more even, the Mountaintop of the Giants have some really bad places and some really good places. Most of the time you just see the host on the mountains and you're in the lake. Yeah, that's why it gets to be at the bottom here. Mount Gelmir. Perhaps the place in the entirety of the game, well, except for the Ruins of Ra, with the worst spawns. This has strong elements to it. It really does. But I can't put it in Ugh, because we do have some really interesting fights that happens on top of the mountains. The big-ass ladder in front of the Falling Star Beast area, I have some really good memories of. I do. And so I do think that Mount Gelmir deserves to be at least in D tier. And the Virgin Abductors are funny? Yeah. It's either a very low C or top D. And I guess I'm gonna give it top D because, again, there have been times where I used my teleporting finger again and again and again and again and again, teleported to an area, and then decided to just nope the fuck out. Do not like that. You can invade the boss area too, no? Falling Star Beast? Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can. Which is why it is saved from being an Ugh. Next up is the heroes' graves, and we're gonna take all of these and put them in one. There are some fun elements. There are also some annoying elements. I suppose I will put this in D tier as well. There you have the area where you can jump down on some really, really thin rafters, and I have hidden there. You can make use of the chariots inside of the heroes' graves, and I thought that has a lot of potential. But at the same time, finding people at times can be annoying, and a lot of the time it's also just, hey, fight downhill, fight uphill, fight in this small room. I think it deserves its top D. Yeah. Skidoo Altus. That will also encompass a fair amount of stuff. One of the things it will encompass is the ruins of the town where you find the Kung Fu guy. I don't remember what it's called, but that's a really interesting place, especially if you delve deeper into the broken town. You also have some lakes. You have a few bosses. There is, of course, the dragon, and there's also a bunch of camps. It's Dry Leaf. That's what it is. Yeah, of course it is. Hi, King Tiger. So because of that, I do think it deserves some love. I'll probably put it right in front of the Fort of Reprimand, but not in front of Caelid, because of the flatness of this area. A lot of the fights also just happens at the start of the area, at the Grace, because that's where people summon. But hey, it's still pretty good. It's still pretty fun. I never think, oh, Okay, I have to go here. I'm more like, oh yeah, alright, we're going at Skadu Altus. Charo's Hidden Grave. Charo's Hidden Grave is a little better than Altus Plateau and the Cerulean Coast, in that there's some more interesting terrain. You can make use of the graves. It's beautiful to look at, and yeah, that's about it. It's a little flat. There's a Deathrite bird there, but you have the opportunity to knock people off cliffs, which I have done. There are the interesting little islands, you could say, where you find the hippo. So it's definitely the better one of these. And I'm also gonna put it in front of Bonnie Village. No. In front of the caves even. I'm gonna put it in front of the subterranean shunning grounds. I think that's fair. Finger Ruins of Rhea. This must be one of the most disappointing places in Elden Ring from a PvE perspective, because it's a huge area and there's nothing there. It's just bumpy. It's bumpy terrain, but there's no cliffs or something that you jump off or onto. You just run around. There is a little bit of cover to get thanks to the fingers, but no. I think this might be the weakest of the C tier. I think it might. I don't get a lot of invasions there, which is why it gets to be in C and not D tier. If a lot of people were in these areas, then maybe I would get sick of it sooner. But because it's so rare to actually invade there, it gets to be a C. It's boring visually. I actually like it visually, but it's more like, oh, well, that's cool. If I only have to be here once. It's the non-flat ground. Yeah, exactly, Raston, exactly. Next up is the Skadu View. And this area is also has some finger ruins to it, but it also includes Marcus Village, a few interesting hilltops, and the bridge. Most of my fighting, though, will happen by the bonfire, or the grace, after the bridge. And so you fight generally around by the Falling Star Beast, and by all of the sleeping parasites. And that area is pretty good. It's pretty fun to fight. It's a little difficult to hide from mages and stuff there, but it's still fine. It's alright. It's playable, so I'm gonna put it right here before Bonnie Village, but after, well, in front of Bonnie Village, but behind Castle Morn, because Castle Morn still has some of that really interesting designed area feel to it, while the Skadu View is one of the more interesting open world areas, I suppose. Consecrated Snowfield. This area would have been a complete and utter if it wasn't for the fact that we do have the town at the very end that you have to go through if you want to go to the Haligtree. Well, it's definitely a C. I'm gonna put it between Altus and between the Finger Ruins of Ra. It's very flat, and the town doesn't carry hard enough. Oh, you think it's an ach, Daniel? You don't think the town carries hard enough? You know what? I will agree with you. I will not agree that it's an ach. I don't think it's an ach, but I do think that it's perhaps a weaker D. Now that I think of it, all of my good memories in this area, in the Consecrated Snowfield, has been in the town. The only other areas where we get to fight people are in front of the dragon kin and by the coffin wagon, I suppose. And those are generally not fun areas to fight in. So we'll say D. Dragon Barrow. Oh, okay. So we have Caelid and we have Dragon Barrow. I must admit, I may have taken Dragon Barrow into account when we ranged Caelid, but you know what? Fine. Look, it's okay. Even without the Dragon Barrow, Caelid is fine where it is. I do like Dragon Barrow, though. I do. I love climbing up the Divine Fortress. Fighting people while they're trying to get into that is so much fun. You do have a dragon on the bridge, but that's not too bad. Fighting people in front of the clergyman, the beast clergyman, that's pretty fun. And it's a pretty unique area to fight people in as well. Yeah, you know what? We are going to put it in front of Castle Redmane, but not in front of the Fort of Reprimand. Yeah, that's pretty good. There's also the Putrid Rot avatar. Yeah. Hi, Cinderfox. Welcome to the stream. Rearranging all of the invadable areas in Elden Ring. Well, at least the ones I have thought of. Raw base. It's not bad, I guess. But it's another one of those flat, kind of boring areas. Raw base does have a ruin in it. And it also leads you to one of the Scorpion Catacombs. In that area, you have some bears, and you can actually stand on huge piles of shit. But I do have to do a lot of running, generally, when I invade here, because you can be spawned so far away. And I would rather invade in Altus than there. So, raw base goes before Altus. Yeah, I know, Timber. We don't get to invade much there. It's Yeah, it's a little Then we have the Weeping Peninsula. The Weeping Peninsula is much more interesting, I would say, than both Altus, Cerulean Coast, Hero's Grave, and maybe even Limgrave. Weeping Peninsula is one of those open areas, but you can fight on the beach, which I do know is a flat area, but that's kind of fun. You have bridges, you have the poisonous area a little bit ahead of Castle Morn. You have the giant golems that fire at the hosts. And then you have the areas that are on top, both by the tree avatar. You have the ruins where you can find Selen. You have the towers that you can climb up and fight people in. And generally when I fight people here, I don't end up fighting on flat ground. We do tend to take the fight to a bunch of different places. It's not quite a B. I wouldn't call it a B. I think it's better than Limgrave. It might even be better than Graveside Plains. It's better than Sol. I think I'm gonna put it as a C. The best of the C's so far. Timber is weeping for B. I could be convinced to place it as a lower B tier, but I think high C is pretty reasonable. Deeproot Depths. This place is both incredibly fun and somewhat annoying at the same time. Fighting at the bottom though, we do have some really cool ruins that you can dodge and weave and go around. There are some thick brush that you can hide in. There are of course the roots high up that you can fight on. There are the buildings that are high up that you can fight on. There are also a few flat surfaces though that gets a little boring at times, but you also do have a flat surface with a giant mausoleum, and in the Deeproot Depths, that was the very first time I saw a host get stepped on by a mausoleum. So that is something that I will remember forever. So we're definitely putting it at a B, and I think even in front of Redmane Castle. Because I think the strengths of the Deeproot Depths are better. And there's also the area before the city itself, where you have to go over the roots to get to the other side, or you can go through the ant cave. The ant cave is a little boring, but if you choose to go over the roots, now that's fun. That's a fun one. And there's the Death Blight. Ants are hilarious. Parkour, Death Blight, and Gravity. It's a B. Oh, you think it might even be a B or an A? I think that I will put it in front of... You know, you may have convinced me. I think visually the area is a little boring, but I do think if Shaded Castle is an A, then I will put this as an A as well. A slightly weaker A, maybe, but still an A. Langdell, Ashen Capital. It gets a D. Most of the area is just ash. Not all that fun. It does have the interesting areas in front of, or right before the bosses, which is cool, but I'll put it as top D. You know, it's boring with a little sprinkle of fun. Stone Coffin Fissure. Now this has a lot of different elements that I generally really like. Uneven terrain, jumping, and cliffs. But at the same time, I don't know. It's a little annoying. A lot of the time when you spawn in or when you run away from the hosts kind of get the high ground on you. So that tends to be a little frustrating to me. Still though, I do think it's a C. I don't think it's better than Castle Morn. It's not better than the Skadoo view, but maybe it's better than the Skadoo view. It's here or there. I'd probably want to invade more in the Skadoo view than the Stone Coffin Fissure, but I will put it there. I think that's fine. Absolutely. Next up is Ansel River, which is basically just a bunch of tunnels. It's not... There are some structures in the bigger... God damn it. I don't know why you scared me so much with that, Darth. But you did. At any rate, there are some interesting places in it. And I do like invading there, but it's not like... It's kind of like a C-. So I'll put it in front of the Finger Ruins of Rhea. It's interesting, because the Finger Ruins of Rhea is the opposite of the Ansel River, but they're also the same. This one is a big, flat, boring area, and this is, for the most part, flat, closed-up tunnels. You think Ansel River is a mid-C? Well, Cinderfox, I think I could maybe be convinced to put it in front of the Raw base, but I don't think I want to put it in front of the Altus Plateau or any of the other ones. So... slightly weaker C. Lake of Rot immediately gets placed in the... Yes, I do put it there. I do. Look, the Lake of Rot is sometimes fun. There are a few structures in the Rot, a few islands of fun to be found. But most of my invasions that end up there first revolves around me walking to the host, spamming eating, the rot boluses, and or losing a ton of health because I find that to be boring and don't pay attention. So it gets a strong ugh. Don't like it. Don't like it at all. Mohgwyn Palace. Well, Mohgwyn Palace and the entire Mohgwyn area, I suppose, is fine-ish. The path leading up to Mohg himself has some interesting elements to it, especially the dark area, and the elevator in front of Mohg himself is a fun place to fight. You can touch the elevator, jump off, prohibit your people to fight there. There's also a little bit of a cliff there and some enemies. It's always hilarious to see people get eviscerated by the bloody Albonerics. But at the same time, it's not like the area is incredibly exciting in other ways. I do believe it's worthy of a place in C tier. Probably better than the caves, but just barely. Mohgwyn is B for real. I'm gonna put it in mid-C. Here we have Nokron Eternal City. So Nokron Eternal City, that's a fun one, because behind the area where people generally summon people, you have some broken buildings that you have to parkour through. And the few times I get invasions in that area, I love it. Then there is the main courtyard, which is a big flat area, but you do have some buildings that you can run into, and there is that pavilion, the stone pavilion, that you can take cover behind should there be magic. Then you run towards the boss, the Mimic Tear. There are some cliffs there that you can take advantage of. You can push people off if you have the Mimic Veil. And because it's segmented in levels, so you go down a staircase, there's a level, then you go down another staircase, there's a level. And I believe there might not be a staircase, but the bridge has fallen down a bit, so you have to jump up onto some stone platforms. I really like this area. I really like this area. I wish there was more. And after the Mimic Tear, there's also that large bridge-like area, which I think is cool, because the rubble and stuff around does help to keep it interesting. I want to say that this is a B tier. I want to put it between the Fort of Reprimand and the Dragon Barrow. Nokstella Eternal City. Nokstella is not as great as Nokron. Nokstella does have that issue where you spawning at the absolute wrong place. They may be close to you if you are living in a 2D space, but once it turns into 3D, they are down on the ground, you're on top of the terraces. Yeah, Nokstella is definitely one of them. Absolutely walrus. So the spawn here is annoying as hell. I'd probably still want to play here instead of the Finger Ruins of Ra. So it's not quite a D tier, but if the spawns had been better, I could see this move far up on the C tier. And maybe even we could have gotten it to a B tier, but as it stands, it is what it is. Then we have Siofra River. Siofra River is one of the few places that has those bolts of lightning that you can lure enemies towards. A lot of the time, when you're an invader, the host gets a little wary if you run too close to an enemy. But in this case, we have the bolts of electricity. There are also that really interesting path that leads you to the merchant. So you have to climb up some ladders, and then you get to walk over, I don't know, a small wooden bridge that brings you to the merchant. That's pretty fun. There is the cliffside area. I have fought a ton of people very close to the elevator at the end of this place, which I think is a cool place to fight. And if you take the elevator up with the people, they are stuck in that small room where you find the elevator. It's really interesting. So yeah, you know what? We're gonna have to put Siofra River probably before Altus, Cerulean, Shunning Grounds, Kara's Hidden Grave, not before Mohgwyn. You know what? Yeah, screw it. Before Mohgwyn Palace and Bonnie Village. You know, in front of Stone Coffin and the Skadru View as well. Not be in front of Castle Morn, but I do think it deserves its place as a mid-C tier. This is a special place for me. This is the Divine Tower of Caelid. It gets an S rank. I love this place. I do. It's where I had my favorite invasions, knocking people off the edge, fighting on those perilous edges is just something that I love. I absolutely love. Some people might find that really boring, because if you make one mistake, your life is over. But that's kind of what makes me attracted to it. I absolutely love it. And that's why it gets to be an S tier. Some of my most viewed videos is in that area specifically. This last tier is a river, but it's the river that you can get to after you remove the flooding from the Shadow Keep. This is basically the river that leads down to the Cerulean coast. And there are some fun stuff here. You can jump across some cliff sides back and forth. There is a rather flat surface at the very bottom, but there's also this little hill, and there are a bunch of lightning goats rolling around. So I do think this deserves to be in C tier. Maybe not far up there, but I think it's definitely in front of the Raw base and the Noxtella Eternal City. I absolutely think that is the right thing to do. So, ladies and gentlemen, have I missed something? Okay, so a few things I missed here at the end. For example, the pot areas, the pot jails. I don't understand how I could forget them, because they are some of my favorite areas in the game. They have a lot of different terrain. They have the flat areas, they have cliffs, they have small tunnels. And while the small tunnels are a little annoying in those areas, the other areas more than make up for it. So I do think they deserve to be in the A tier. There's also the question of the furnaces. The furnace areas aren't as good as the pot areas, but I do think they are pretty solid, so I want to give them a C. If you're watching this on YouTube, this is where you comment down below and tell me how fucking wrong I am, or how much you want to pleasure me orally